Welcome to Crisis in Perception, where we examine the systems shaping our world, one book at a time. Today, we're jumping into a huge one, Jared Diamond's Pulitzer Prize-winning book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. And it tackles a massive question. Why did human history unfold so differently and so unequally across the continents?
You know, the whole spark for this massive book didn't come from some dusty university library. Nope. It started with a really simple but profound question, asked on a beach in New Guinea.
So, back in 1972, a local politician, a really charismatic guy named Yali, posed this question to Diamond. Cargo, in this context, meant all the material goods, steel axes, medicines, even soft drinks that Europeans brought with them. Yali knew his people were just as intelligent, yet the disparity in stuff was just staggering.
And that one question from Yali? That's the key that unlocks this entire investigation. It expands into the broadest pattern of human history. Why did wealth and power end up distributed this way and not some other way? Why wasn't it the Native Americans who ended up conquering Eurasia?
So, how do you explain these vast differences? For centuries, many explanations were, let's be blunt, based on ugly, racist ideologies about the innate abilities of different peoples.
Diamond's work completely throws those old theories out the window. He says the answer isn't about biological differences between people at all. The real answer, the ultimate cause, lies in the environmental differences between the continents. It's about geography.
And this one single idea is the foundation for the entire system he lays out. The different paths history took weren't determined by the people themselves, but by the land they just happened to live on.
So how exactly did the environment shape history? Well, it all starts with the very first and maybe the most important domino to fall, the shift away from hunting and gathering to farming, which began around 13,000 years ago.
See, the thing is, becoming a farmer wasn't some choice that was open to everybody on the planet. It was more like a geographic lottery, and only a few places, like Eurasia's Fertile Crescent, happened to hit the jackpot. They had all the best raw materials just lying around, a ton of easily domesticated plants like wheat and barley, plus a whole suite of the world's most useful animals: cows, pigs, sheep, goats, and horses, the whole shebang.
Now that agricultural head start wasn't just a small leg up. It triggered this incredible chain reaction, a huge cascade of consequences that just kept building on each other for thousands of years.
Think about it. Farming creates food surpluses, which allows for denser populations. And once not everyone has to spend their day looking for food, societies can support specialists, soldiers, artisans, scribes. This leads to complex technology and centralized governments. But there was also a really sinister byproduct. Living so closely with all those domestic animals became the perfect breeding ground for lethal germs like smallpox and measles. And right there you have it. That's the title of the book. These advantages, the technology, the political organization, and the diseases, are the guns, germs, and steel. They aren't the ultimate cause of inequality, but they were the direct tools that allowed some societies to conquer others.
But having the best starter pack of plants and animals wasn't the only advantage. There was a second, massive environmental factor at play: the literal shape of the continents themselves.
Take a look at Eurasia. It's wide, stretching from east to west. This means crops, livestock, and ideas could spread rapidly across thousands of miles through similar climates. But now look at the Americas and Africa. They're long, oriented north-south. Trying to move crops from Mexico to Peru meant crossing dramatic climate zones, which acted as these huge barriers, slowing or even stopping the spread of agriculture and new ideas.
So what this all means is that from the very beginning, history was never a fair competition. The starting line was completely staggered.
And this is really the book's central metaphor. Geography didn't just give Eurasian societies a head start in the race of history. It gave them a wider, flatter, and faster track to run on. And over millennia, that initial gap just snowballed into a massive cumulative advantage.
So when you put it all together, what do we take away from this? What does looking at the world through this environmental framework really help us understand?
Diamond makes a really critical point here. This kind of explanation is not a justification. It's not about saying these outcomes were inevitable or that they were right. It's about understanding the deep, systemic causes so that we can better address their consequences today.
And this brings us to the final thought. If the broadest patterns of history were shaped so heavily by the luck of the geographic draw and not by anyone's innate worth, how does that change the way you perceive global inequality and the achievements of different cultures today? For the full, long-form deep dives into this book and its ideas, follow the link in the description.
If you enjoy this kind of systems-level analysis, please like, subscribe, and comment with books or topics you'd like us to explore next.